I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Is man, as some would have us believe, a unique species to this universe? One that evolved over the eons to finally stand upright and walk this planet? One that was able in the course of less than a century to progress from horse-driven carriages to putting a man on the moon? How was this staggering technological progress achieved over such a short period of time? Is it pure coincidence, then, that midway through this period, reports of flying saucers began to emerge from around our world? At the precise moment when man was signalling his intentions to step forth from his earthbound environment, the phenomenon we now term UFOs signal back. Throughout the documented history of those early pioneering manned missions into space, one can find numerous references made by both astronauts and cosmonauts to witnessing, and sometimes describing, curious anomalous objects seen while in orbit around the Earth. John Glenn likened these to fireflies, and for a time NASA actually believed they had stumbled across living critters, according to one of its retired astronauts, Scott Carpenter. The years went by, and with each passing decade there appeared no let-up in reports of UFO activity. But in the late 1980s, those reports took on far greater significance with the arrival of the camcorder. Individuals chose to erect more powerful dishes to locate and access a wide variety of transmissions beamed back to Earth from scores of overhead satellites. In theory, the more powerful the receiver, the more choice it would offer. And, as we've already seen, some of those individuals chose to utilize their satellite dishes to monitor and record transmissions beamed down to Earth from the space shuttle. But what if one of those individuals had the means to utilize an even greater array of satellite receiving dishes to record and subsequently log every second of NASA transmissions from not one solitary space shuttle mission, but from several, covering a period of almost 5 years? What then? That incredible scenario first came to light late one evening in the summer of 1999, when Graham Birdsall, editor of UFO magazine in Britain, took a call on his mobile phone. The caller was Martin Stubbs, a cable TV station manager from Vancouver in Canada. For the next 45 minutes, Graham listened intently as Martin proceeded to recount an extraordinary story in which he claimed to have accessed NASA's downlink transmissions originating from numerous space shuttle missions that stretched back over a period of several years. And, amidst all of this carefully logged footage that amounted to over 2,500 hours, Martin further claimed to have stumbled across something equally extraordinary, palpable evidence for the reality of not one, but 2 extraterrestrial life forms. In order to fully verify these and other equally amazing claims, Russell Callahan was dispatched to Vancouver last August to meet up with Martin in person. Joining him would be Brian Borshoff, project director of the Phenomena exhibition, who flew in especially from Australia.
And when I started breaking the frames down, I found you still couldn't find it. You'd go from this frame to this frame and there'd be a quick movement. So then I had to get a videotape recorder, an SVH machine, an older model, funny enough, not the digital model, that literally, when you rolled the thing, it would break the frames into fields. And in reality, there are 60 individual pictures that make up 1 second of video. And that's when I found them.
So you were finding these on one of those 60 frames?
I found, in fact, the first one I found, I only found 1.
Right.
And then I thought, well, I should be able to, if this is real, I should be able to do it again. And then I found 2. And it just went from there. There's this very interesting thing about 3 or 4 flights in where it says, John Glenn's fireflies spotted over Perth. They're still calling them John Glenn's fireflies. And we have an astronaut making the comment on the 25th anniversary of the moon flight. He says, it's hard to believe, but he says it's a fact that we thought that John's fireflies, again, Glenn's fireflies, were living critters. Now, at no time have I've read everything, and at no time have I ever heard that before, that NASA concluded originally that the fireflies were alive. So they were still calling them John Glenn's fireflies 4 flights in. There's another interesting thing. If you look at John Glenn's original photos, which I have, which he bought a camera at a Cocoa Beach drugstore, even though the shuttle, or the whatever capsule that I've forgotten, even though they had a camera on that, he took his own. And when he saw the fireflies, and it's all documented, and it's even in the movie The Right Stuff, walk, because the fellow flipped around, the astronaut flipped around and couldn't stop. So that's what made the news. But if you look at the whole spacewalk, and everybody in the media had the chance, there's a point where he says, there's an Mark, will you look out there? There's an object right in front of you. And the military fellow says, I don't know what you're talking about. Now just think to yourself, if I said there's a bee about to sting you, wouldn't you go, I wonder where that is, or something other than, I don't know what you're talking about? First of all, what do you mean you don't know what I'm talking about? If I'm in outer space and I'm flying around and my partner says there's an object in front of you, I wouldn't say, I don't know what you're talking about, and then his next line is, never mind. And then the third astronaut says, am I missing something? And he says, don't worry, the lens filter came off, now confirming the size and how close it must have been. Going, and it's flying off at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Now, when they first mentioned the object, the shuttle camera, you couldn't see it. So I wasn't looking for it. They drew my attention to it. I looked, and there the object emerged. And the third thing he's saying to the third astronaut is, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You know, it's the camera filter. And then he even confirms, off 10, 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock, you know. And then there's a pause, and the control room below tells him to stay vector. Shut up. Stay on course. Continue with what you were supposed to do. When in STS-80, when the door wouldn't open, you know, they had the spacewalk scheduled, and the door wouldn't open. I remember watching that and seeing all of this third phenomena, this second space phenomena, but the third phenomena, all around the door. And they were moving the door and trying to get it open. And I'd never seen this phenomena do that before. And then a flight or two later, the astronauts were commenting right on the feed that there was something had come through the door. They were seeing these flashing colored lights.
The subject of their attention, these anomalous objects, seen in close proximity to the Mir space station, intriguingly, here's the exact same sequence, only this time recorded by Martin Stubbs from NASA's Downlink. Compare the two. These objects are patently of interest to those watching in Russia, so might the same be true of their counterparts at NASA?